I'm gonna just delete whatever we say, unless it is like the best recording that we ever do in our life. But I just want to see how the microphone picks it up.
Right. We probably should have came up with some like introduction beforehand. Like,
No, so
hi, welcome everyone to the.
Don't worry, I got you.
Yeah,
Hello, welcome back to History Speaks. Today is very exciting because we have the first episode of a series that I am going to be starting called Cleophily. Cleophily is Greek for lovers of history or friends of history. And this is basically just going to be a series where I bring on somebody that I know who works in history or is interested in history or likes history or has some interesting insights into a historical topic. And we just talk about it. So this is my good buddy Jake, and he is going to tell us about the Roman Republic. So Jake, how did you get interested in history?
Thanks, Solomon. Well, if I had to say when, it would be probably in like middle school and whatnot, because I was always interested in the why of things. Why are things the way they are? And you just kind of start going back, and you can keep on going back, and things kind of become less and less certain the further back you go. And that's when you have to diversify your sources, and then wonder, is this person trying to say an accurate tale of events? Was this person actually there? If they were actually there, are they trying to set out more of a message than like an accurate account of things? So I don't know. It's a bit fun doing like detective work like that and whatnot, and try to like balance it out. And sometimes you can come to your own conclusions on an individual basis. Not saying they'd be ready academically or anything like that.
Sure, yeah. And I think that's really one of the things that is the most interesting about ancient history, is that you really there's so much space for interpretation there.
Right.
Right. So, in like more modern history, there's all of this kind of like everyone basically, the facts are very well established in a lot of cases. And if they aren't, there's like very kind of set camps about what happened.
Right. I know the topic today is Rome, but like let's think, for example, the Macedonian Empire. It's like, what do I know about it personally? I know Philip the Great, Alexander's father. Then I know Alexander. And then I know I believe it was the Antigonids who were in charge of the Macedonian Empire after that. I could not tell you anything before that of like, Greek city-states other than like, Peloponnesian War and like the things that were like,
Well, right, and there's so much that is like not super well established, right? So like we don't know necessarily, we have these very detailed accounts coming from the Athenians, right? Because they were the ones whose culture kind of really became influential.
They were the more scholastic type.
Right, but like, some of like we don't have as good of detail about, like what was necessarily happening in Macedonia after, prior to the rise of Philip. Right. So like we know some of the kings who preceded Philip, but we don't necessarily have as good of or as clear of a picture about
that's probably
the political context.
True. That's probably because the people writing the history probably didn't care as much.
Right. Yeah.
Literacy.
Yeah. So I mean,
literacy isn't what it is now. So
right. And I mean that's like the reason that we don't know as much about Carthage as we would really like to.
Oh yeah. Well.
I guess it's not the reason, but the Romans didn't care about Carthaginian history that much, and then when they beat them, they destroyed the Carthaginian library.
Right. Like when Rome conquered Greece, they had a lot higher respect for Greek culture, seeing as like, various reasons. There was a lot of things borrowed from Greek culture. Their pantheon was kind of borrowed from Greek culture and whatnot. So like, even though they may have been adversaries at war at one time, the various Diadachi kingdoms and whatnot, they still paid homage to the Greeks of old, so to say, as opposed to Carthage, who were their military rivals and like maritime rivals who they just butted heads with. Is like, I don't ever think about this guy ever again, kind of sort of thing. So
it's and like that respect for Greek culture ended up being kind of it ended up becoming kind of the thing that held the empire together.
It's actually funny in Rome. So like during the early days of Rome, Carthage was like way more powerful and influential. And whatnot. Like they already had like holdings in like Sicily and like Sardinia and whatnot, and like Rome was this like fledgling state that was fighting against other Latin powers at the time.
Other hill tribes.
Italy,
Samnites, each other on the head.
Samnites. Don't ask me the smaller ones. Etruscans. Eventually, the Etruscans were the biggest Latin power for the time, for a bit before Rome kind of usurped them and like consolidated their power and whatnot. Brudii, I might be misquoting.
Yeah, there were a lot of tribes, and I think that we're going to be talking today about. You wanted to talk today about somebody who is very influential in those kind of hill tribe conflicts.
Oh yeah. So
Okay. So, yeah, you're gonna tell. You said you. I think that this is a topic that's interesting to people living in the city that we're from.
Right.
Because it's relevant to our name. So who are you gonna tell us about today?
Oh well, personally, I was thinking we could start by talking about the great Cincinnatus. Now, obviously, with these older Roman figures, you'll find that they're more idealized of what a leader should or shouldn't be and whatnot. I think the most common understanding of Cincinnatus was that he was a man who lived on a farm. He was called by the Roman Senate to save Rome in a time of peril.
Well,
and he seized power and he went back.
Let's back up. I think if you maybe live in Cincinnati, then you might know that. But what was the context that he rose in? Like, how did he kind of come to prominence?
Well, he was from a patrician family, I believe.
Right. Okay.
So if you're unfamiliar with like Roman social structures, you basically have patricians, which are the upper class, and plebeians or plebs, which are the commoners and whatnot. And then you have slaves, and then you have like things that are in between. Yeah.
People like foreign citizens.
Yeah, very like subclasses like equites and whatnot, which are like another area of nobility and whatnot, and you could become
the knights and things like that. But
not really the knight idea.
I think you can call them knights.
Equites are like, in a way, they're kind of like a precursor to knights, but like the idea of like knighthood actually came more from like the church of like exempling like Christian values. But no, it is like a warrior class who like exemplifies masculine virtues and whatnot, and what masculine virtues are. It changes with time goes on. So yeah, no, it is sure, kind of it's kind of like a knight.
And I mean most like kind of settled like agrarian societies had like a horse-mounted warrior class of some kind.
Right. Well, horses were expensive, so if you could afford a horse.
So you needed land to be able to graze the horses and all that.
Right.
So but at this time, patrician and plebeian was the important social divide. So what is a plebeian? Who are the patricians and who are the plebeians?
So basically, if you were a free, don't quote me on this, but if you were patricians and plebs, that's what we were talking about. Yeah. All right. So basically, what a pleb or a plebeian is basically if you're a free Roman citizen, you are a pleb. And if you're like a upper class nobleman, you're usually considered a patrician. There were patrician families that were kind of like they were basically descended from like senators and whatnot.
Right. So the Senate was the 100 men who were picked by the first king of Rome, Romulus. And then the patricians were anybody who was descended from them.
I believe so, yeah. Or like, who like laid claim and whatnot. Eventually the Senate, I believe it was like the tribune of patricians and the tribune of plebeians. The plebs eventually got.
I don't actually know if there was a tribune.
No, not tribune. I think the tribunes were basically.
I think what it was is that most of the patricians could.
It's like a court of.
If Michael was here, I bet he would know.
He would know off the top of his head. It was like the court of. Hold on, I'm just gonna.
The tribunes, I think, were something that was an innovation.
No, the tribunes, I believe, was like
that was introduced to protect the plebeians.
Right. Court of plebs. What is that called? So how the plebeians got representation in Rome, and actually, funnily enough, didn't happen not too long before Cincinnatus' story begins, or when it's believed to have begun. Basically, there was clashes between plebeians and patricians. Patricians have all the institutional power, all the mechanisms, government, military, and whatnot. They kind of have control of that, and they can kind of like, use that authority to, like, enact things how they wanted. The plebeians weren't really happy with that. They got in a bit of scuffle. They demanded representation. That was a compromise, and then the tribune of plebeians was basically formed. So yeah, Cincinnatus, he was from one of the patrician families. He claims descent.
Hold on. What's going on? Sorry, I hope that the recording turned out wasn't too jarring just now. There was some technical issues. Jake, you were telling us about Cincinnatus and kind of his social standing.
Yeah, funnily enough, despite the fact that he's like regaled as this hero, Cincinnatus was actually, funnily enough, an opponent of the plebeians.
Right. So he was an upper class Roman who was really actually opposing reform.
Initially, in fact, maybe not like this is after the whole establishment of the tribune of plebeians, or maybe like during that time. I know this happened sometime in the if I say 4th century BC, is that 400 BC?
That would be the 300s.
All right, so this is like 5th,
So I think
5th century BC is like when he was around.
Yeah.
And that's when the tribune of the plebeians was formed.
Yeah, the last king was deposed because he was immediately after the last king was deposed.
Right. I believe so. I don't know his name though. I don't know the last. I don't know.
Tarquinius Superbus.
Well, it's a good thing you're here. So superb.
If you know the name of the last Roman king, why don't you leave a comment letting us know?
Right. Again, the further back
in your comments, say whether or not you had to look it up on Wikipedia before
right. We're operating off script and on memory solely. So be patient if we say anything like not entirely correct. Anyway,
or share it to Twitter and tell everybody what a bunch of knuckleheads.
Yeah, these guys think they know history. They don't.
Really take us to task on Twitter.
Right.
And,
anyways.
Or X, whatever.
Right. Whatever social media platform you can tolerate.
Yeah, comment, and subscribe.
Yeah, like it, share the video. Anyways, back to Cincinnatus. So
what were there like any reforms that the plebeians were kind of agitating for?
Representation in government was the big one, I believe.
Right.
Yeah,
So
because beforehand, it was just the nobility that had and they did for much of the Roman Republic.
And I think that this is one of the important things about the Roman Republic, that people either don't necessarily we don't really think of it. I think this is one of the important things to understand what it was historically, is that it was it really was more of an oligarchy than it was a democratic institution.
In fact, the tribune of plebeians kind of became kind of like the patricians. So how I would best describe the tribune of patricians and tribune of plebeians is kind of like how Britain had their parliament system. So you have the House of Commons and the House of Lords or Nobles, I believe.
Yeah,
forgive me, I'm
Lords,
American.
yep.
So I'm recollecting some middle school history class or something like that. But that's how it started. Nowadays, you know how government works. A lot of these politicians, they get into power and they kind of like the power, and it's like, maybe it had noble origins, but time has a funny way of kind of repeat. Anyways, enough about that. We're not talking about now. We're talking about then. So, Cincinnatus had a son who killed a very influential plebeian, and that son of his fled to the Etruscan land. So this is what caused his first exile. Basically, because they couldn't punish his son.
Now, I don't think we talked about this while the mic was recording. Who are the Etruscans?
The Etruscans were like the dominant Latin power before Rome took over. They were mainly situated in the northern part of the Italian peninsula. Not quite the Alps region, a little bit south of that, but like north of Rome.
And if I'm remembering correctly, the region of Italy called Tuscany is named after them.
I believe so, yeah.
So that's, if you know where Tuscany is, that's roughly the region that the Etruscans.
And funnily enough, a lot of their Roman pantheon was primarily based off the Etruscan gods before they decide they like the
Yeah,
Greeks.
the Etruscans, the Romans were neighbors of Etruscans and the Greeks
Right. I believe that.
simultaneously.
I believe the last speaking. Well, the Etruscans also had their own language, and I believe died out sometime in like the first or second century. There was some like
during the Empire.
yeah, no, but it made it past like birth of Christ and whatnot. I think it died out in like the 100s or like so that would be like second century AD and whatnot.
Well, you know who knew Etruscan was the Emperor Claudius.
Really?
He wrote a history of the Etruscans because his wife was Etruscan.
Huh. The more you know. Well, Rome also had a funny system of like how their empire expanded because they were kind of like cities they conquered, and then they were like allied cities of Rome. So like if you were like help the Roman allies, like you would be considered like a friend of Rome.
Right.
As a city, as opposed to like as a person. That's a different.
Right. They were very big on carrot and stick.
Right. And basically, if you're a friend of Rome, that means like we will protect you, and like maybe you get better. Tax situations, maybe don't. I don't know. I'm not too familiar.
Trade privileges.
I'm not too familiar about the whole taxation and like numerical issues of that.
So is there any idea why Cincinnatus' son defected to the Etruscans?
There are a lot of scuffles. It's not like when the tribune of he didn't defect. He just ran away. He fled. He fled. So he was basically like. He took on exile more so.
Okay.
Yeah. Because Cincinnatus didn't fight the Etruscans, I believe. I believe he fought another neighboring tribe, the Equi, which are I only really know them from their interactions with Cincinnatus. But basically, these guys were on like the doorstep of Rome. They like conquered one of their like neighboring cities that they're having. Because again, Rome is like still kind of in its infancy. It's like I'd say it's in like a juvenile state yet. It's not quite the rising power. I wouldn't say Rome.
No, it was probably the least. If you were like placing bets in the 7th century,
you wouldn't bet on Rome.
Yeah, they were like a bunch of kind of marauding like
These people were still
they
very
were hillbillies.
These people were very much in their tribal era.
I mean, let's go back to like the neighbors that they had. So you had the Etruscans, who are this highly civilized,
more so than
highly
Roman.
Sophisticated, like civilization is not the right word, but it's like
society or people
culture. Like they had a very well developed culture. They had a highly developed kind of religious system.
Yeah, not quite to the same level of the Greeks, obviously, but like for the Italian position.
But definitely distinct.
They're the most advanced Latins. They had their time.
And then you had the Latins, which the Romans were a part of.
They're all Latins, I believe.
No, the Etruscans spoke their own language.
But they were okay. Sorry, I'm conflating Latin with Italic peoples and whatnot. They were.
Yeah, they were all Italian. Yeah.
Right. Well, Italics is what they called them.
And the Romans were just one group of Latins in central Italy.
Right. Italy was actually there were a lot of players in the Italian game. Like obviously you had a lot of Greek settlements in the south, like Syracuse, and like in fact the whole boot of the whole area of like like where like Sicily and like the heel is, that was all called Magna Graecia, so basically New Greece.
Right. That's where the word Greek enters Latin from. They encountered there was a tribe of Hellenes who settled in Italy that were called the Graecia or something like that.
Yeah, I believe
that's the name that every time that the Romans encountered Hellenes, it's all Greek to me.
Right. Makes sense.
But and so they were operating in this context where there's all these different social players, and there's each of these is basically kind of an independent city.
Right.
That manages its own affairs, but they kind of cooperate with the other cities that share a culture with them. And the
more
Romans
or less sometimes
were kind of unique. I think one of the things that really distinguishes the Romans at this stage is that they fought wars, I think, which is what you were
right
at.
like
they would there was like competition, but there's also a lot of cooperation.
Right. Like I know we're jumping around topics a lot, but like
Well,
It's actually
I
fun.
think it's related because we're trying to kind of paint a picture of the social context.
Right, right. Like this was very not united at the moment. In fact, like, are you familiar with who Pyrrhus is? He was this.
Pyrrhus of Epirus, yeah.
Yeah, Pyrrhus of Epirus.
Well, I was actually thinking about him earlier today.
Yeah,
He's
well,
my favorite successor to
if
Alexander.
we win one more, then we'll lose. He great commander. He just didn't have the manpower and whatnot, and all his victories were like always close calls and whatnot.
Well,
But
he had the poor luck to fight against the Roman Republic.
well, the Romans have a nasty habit of just never giving up, despite how bad their losses are. You can see it with Hannibal. You can see it with Pyrrhus, you know, and their first Punic War.
And I think that this is a great tie-in to the point that I was driving at, which is that the thing that really distinguishes the Romans in my mind in this time period is that they are uniquely bad at playing with the other kids in the sandbox. Like they are uniquely tenacious in terms of never surrendering and never agreeing to terms. And when you have like as many different rival societies, in an area like Italy, that makes it easy for them to, like you end up fighting a lot.
Like, I'm not sure if this is definitive, but it would seem that if your entire existence was basically clawing your way to survival, you kind of develop this like resilient nature where it's like, for our like birth of our civilization, we had to like basically fight hand and foot just to maintain our sovereignty and whatnot.
Our like little hill city,
right,
let alone expand
against like enemies that were like near peers for a longer time. So it was just like in their nature. While as opposed to like places like Carthage, they were kind of the only people, and like you had like North African tribes and whatnot, but they were like their tools were better than their tools. Let's just say that they had better equipment, and the Phoenicians were actually really good at like intermingling with tribes and whatnot, so they weren't like really.
I never really thought about it like that, but do you think that,
funnily enough,
Carthage is a easier, like what am I trying to say? Like in terms of the geopolitical situation,
like cosmopolitan or something like that?
Do you think it's like an easier location to settle than where Rome ended up? Like if you're founding a city,
it's a lot further away. You have the coast on one side and the desert, so you kind of can tell where tribes are like going through and whatnot. The thing with like living in peninsulas is that multiple civilizations kind of like form around them, and they kind of like duke it out to see who becomes the dominant one. Yeah. Kind of like in Greece and whatnot, except Greece had way more players in the game, and Greeks were that's a different story altogether. We'll not talk about the Greeks now.
Well.
But you see it in
that'll be what the second episode we
right. But like you can see it in like old Cana with all the Phoenician city-states or Canaanite city-states, tribes, kingdoms, whatnot, and like nomads and things of that nature. So, the thing with Carthage is that you had this settled civilization, who had this like maritime culture and settling culture, go from their like hub, which was in Phoenicia, modern day Lebanon and whatnot, all the way to like Tunisia, where there's no other like near peer civilizations, I'd say.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the Berbers have always, that's really the dominant ethnic group in that region, and they always were
like this is like Iron Age.
Like they were always very nomadic.
Right. They didn't have like, they may have like iron weaponry, but they didn't have like armor was expensive, and like one of these civilizations,
and it's heavy.
It's also heavy, and like it would be very unsuited for a nomadic lifestyle at that time period.
Yeah.
Just because like, and I don't believe. If I was a betting man, I'd say I don't think the tribes of North Africa, like the Libyan tribes of North Africa, had like bronze equipment of like the armor of that. So they may have acquired some stuff through trading, but they weren't able.
Okay, so your second comment, listener, is to tell us about the Bronze Age of North Africa.
Right.
That's your second assignment.
Yeah, which is gonna be difficult because like most of the Bronze Age is focused on like Near East, so like anywhere between like Egypt, Greece, which would be Mycenae at the time, Babylon, Assyria.
Yeah.
Canaan.
So basically, Carthage was in a bit of they were in a situation where they were able to run away in terms of the local culture. You have it's basically this highly advanced, highly sophisticated urban Asiatic society transplanting itself into North Africa.
I think the legend of it is when Alexander was sieging the city of Tyre, the refugees of Tyre. There's like maybe Carthage was probably already an existing settlement at the time, but the refugees fled there, and a lot of the nobles fled there before like Alexander could conquer, because like
maybe in that,
because there's like old Tyre
like
and new Tyre, and like Tyre was like a city, but they also
Sure.
like land portion and whatnot.
Okay.
But I think that
after Alexander, I do know that. I mean, that seems plausible to me. I do know that after Tyre was kind of besieged, or after Tyre fell, Carthage became the center of Phoenician civilization. So really,
right, because I'm half Lebanese in case you didn't know, but like we spent most of our existence being subjugated by one group or another. So like,
and so that's like kind of the start of. Well, Lebanese history can be our third episode.
All right. Well, I'd have to really read up. I have people to represent at that point. I don't want to be like told like, oh, you messed this up.
So basically, Rome was in a tricky scenario, and Cincinnatus was basically he became the kind of strong hand on the wheel,
right?
That was able to stabilize the course that it was undertaking.
Right. I think he had some successful military accolades, and because the first reason they exiled him is like if you become too good of a general, you kind of become a political threat to other people, so they just decided to like cut you out of the pie.
So he was exiled? Cincinnatus was exiled?
Well, he whether he was exiled or he just retreated to an estate outside of the city. I'm not too savvy on those details. I apologize for that. But anyways, when the Equi people were assaulting Rome, a lot of the senators, they came to him. It was like out towing his field. It was like, what do you need? Or like, is there something going on, kind of sort of thing. They tell him to like don his senatorial toga, and then they basically say like, Rome needs you.
The Cincinnatus signal goes up in the sky.
Right.
And
yeah, something like that.
Yeah. Okay.
And so he takes on the position of dictator. So the word dictator originally comes from Rome. And basically it was a position where you are given like emergency powers. So think like, emergency powers to the chancellor of the republic kind of sort of situation, So kind of like that. But the fascinating part about Cincinnatus is basically, historically, whenever someone was granted the position of dictator, they kind of would abuse it to their own enrichment. But with Cincinnatus, when he defeated the Equi, he relinquished his position and went back to farming. There was a second time he was given it. I forget those details, but I think it was a
very similar situation where he had to fight off some enemy of the Romans and then subsequently relinquished the position of dictator.
Right.
And it's the fact that he relinquished it willingly.
Right.
That was considered significant, right? Because when you're dictator, you have supreme military command, and they had just kicked out their kings.
Right. You basically have control of their entire military. And
right.
Like, your civilization kind of enters a total war economy at that point, because it's like, all right, we're fighting for survival. Because
right. We would call it like
this is not meant to be a continuous position. I do believe there are some figures that claim to who basically declared that they were a dictator for life. I think Julius Caesar might be one near the end.
Well, he if I'm remembering correctly, I don't think any of the other people in the late Republic declared themselves, besides him, were ever given the position dictator for life.
Well, it's not something you're given; it's more something you just take for yourself.
Yeah, I think Julius Caesar was the only person who ended up with dictator for life as a position. The other people who kind of claimed it, if I'm remembering correctly, they were dictator for longer than their term.
Right.
But
There's
they
also
and Sulla is the person that I'm thinking of.
Right.
So Sulla was dictator. I can't remember how long he was dictator for, but he didn't relinquish it, and he basically used the position to remake the Roman government. And then once he did that, he kind of retired to a villa where he lived in a life of luxury and partying.
Right. What Romans do best and whatnot.
Right.
You got that from the Greeks.
So I guess where does that kind of leave us with Cincinnatus?
Well, I think he becomes hailed as this individual who was a responsible leader who had the opportunity to abuse the position he was in, but chose not to. I have a funny theory that he was just so sick and tired of dealing with these political types that he was like, I'd rather just go home.
Yeah,
and live the quiet civil life.
That's the image that we're given, isn't it?
Right.
And
maybe these political types
the yeoman Roman citizen who's happier behind the plow than commanding an army or whatever.
Well, it's not like the senators are happy to give away the position of dictator. It's kind of a threatening position to their power.
Right. Anytime you declare a dictator, it's a risk.
Yeah. Because
but it's a cost benefit analysis.
Right. So maybe they were happy that
the political system being overtaken by one man, or do you risk utter annihilation?
Do we risk having less power than what we have at the cost of this guy having I wouldn't say absolute control, but majority control.
Well, supreme authority.
Yeah, basically supreme authority. Or do we risk being conquered by a foreign people who might dismantle our positions altogether?
I think so we started by talking about how Cincinnati was named for Cincinnatus, and this story around kind of why he was, and we kind of worked through the story of how he became this figure of republican virtue, right? He took up supreme authority and then set it back down to go behind the plow, and but the way that kind of narrative was transplanted into America, I think, is pretty interesting.
Right. So for our non-American listeners, funnily enough, George Washington took a lot of inspiration from Cincinnatus and his leadership style. Wanted to be somebody who led responsibly, stayed for as long as he was able to, and to set an example for future leaders and whatnot. Funnily enough, I believe George Washington was part of this order called the Order of Cincinnatus. That
I think it was founded in honor of him.
Yeah. It was definitely founded in honor of him. So. Unless there's some other Cincinnatus that I don't know about.
So he joined the society founded to honor him, and it's still around.
Yeah.
They have you can't join it. Your parents you have to be descended from membership.
Ooh, well, that's some semi-nobility status, I guess. But how does that gel with American culture, huh?
Anyways. Well, yeah, food for thought.
Yeah, something to think about. No, I was like, what do you mean I can't join? I'm sure there's.
And
I'm
so
sure there's ways
Cincinnati, when George Washington was fighting some of the Indian Wars, he fought in the Ohio River Valley a lot, and I can't remember. I think it was. I can't remember if it was founded with a different name first, but Cincinnati was given the name Cincinnati to honor George Washington.
Right. I think there was initially a fort in the area, and as with a lot of settlements, the forts just eventually develop into a city because it's we want to do trade.
We need to trade somewhere.
We can't really trade
stuff
out in the open where
where we can just get robbed
and ambushed, or a lot of bad things can happen. Let's go trade in a fortified settlement, and then natures of civilization, it expands and eventually becomes a city, and then
so there's a statue of Cincinnatus downtown by the riverbanks.
Yeah, I've seen it. It has the fascists, which
you want to talk about that?
Yeah. Well, nowadays it's associated with fascist ideology, which we're not going to get into. But basically, it's what a fascist looks like is.
I'm going to take this moment. This is a controversial. This might be controversial, but I'm proud to say this is a non-fascist podcast. So fascists are not allowed to listen.
All right.
So I just wanted to take a stand there because I think
I'm going to focus more on the history.
So anyway, what is a fascist? What is, if I was to walk into the room with a fascist, how would you describe it?
So what it looks like, it's an axe with like a bundle of sticks surrounding it that are tied. And I believe what it symbolizes is strength in unity, is what it's supposed to
Right,
symbolize.
like the sticks are kind of like society, and
Well, like
it kind of like represents like the dictator himself, right?
Right, like how they're all surrounding the axe, I guess.
Well, like
and it's like the sticks will break individually, but you can put them all together.
Together, ape. What is it? Ape alone weak, ape
Oh,
together strong.
Wait, ape make ape strong. Oh, what's a Planet of the Apes quote?
Yeah, okay. We need to
ape together strong.
Ape together strong.
Yeah,
That can be the title of this episode.
Yeah, ape together strong. Haha, maybe.
Okay, so yeah, he the statue of him down by the riverbanks has a.
Yeah, it has a nice little plaque to it that you
Yeah.
can read. I can't quote it off memory, but it's always fun to visit when you're walking around the.
And you call yourself a Cincinnatian.
Hey, can you quote it?
No.
Exactly. So what are you talking about? No, it's a nice park area. Cincinnati. Funnily enough, Cincinnati.
I think it's a pretty good statue.
Funnily enough, Cincinnati actually has a very similar story to Rome. It was also founded on like 7 hills and whatnot. So.
Well, okay, I think there's more than 7 hills. That's the.
Yeah, I think we may have like shuffled them.
But I think we like picked 7 hills.
We like Rome in Cincinnati, so
yeah. This is in contrast, this is a pro-Roman podcast.
Yeah, Roma Invicta, Roma's mother to us all, of course.
Exactly.
Anyway.
So I don't know anything else about Cincinnatus or George Washington or.
Yeah, basically. So George Washington, after he finished his presidency, because it was funny, people loved him so much, and I think it's because there were a lot of opponents in the early American government, people who disagree with each other. Hamilton and Jefferson would probably be like the big two that like butted heads a lot, but everyone liked Washington, and I feel like it was because he knew how to get people to work together. He knew how much to say and how much not to say in order to foster cooperation between these like people who have different ideas of which direction the nation should go and whatnot. And funnily enough, he probably could have been president until he died because people just loved him.
I think so. Well, and that's.
But he wanted to set.
One of the things that I think is also worth noting is that like a lot of the republics that existed in Europe at the time or immediately prior to the establishment of the United States had lifelong like elected monarchs.
Yeah, they kind of became dictatorships in a way. Like I know in Venice there's the Medici family
or the Doge.
Yeah, the Doge of Venice. The Medici family were in charge of that, I believe, for quite a while. I think they're the most well-known.
Yeah.
Family, Republican family and whatnot. I'm not sure too familiar. I know the Dutch, they were called the United Provinces. They were a republic for a bit before they became a monarchy again, House of Orange type stuff. But yeah, no, it's very, very fascinating and whatnot to talk about. But yeah, no, it's pretty cool because Cincinnatus is kind of admired by leaders all over the world. So funnily enough, when George Washington finished his presidency, he kind of exited the scene in a very similar manner to Cincinnatus. He retreated. He didn't retreat. He left to go to his farm. I believe it was in Mount Vernon, Vermont. Was that the place?
Yeah.
And he just spent the rest of his days there.
Yeah, and I think it's. Have you ever visited it?
Yeah, it's so funny. As a kid, you're like, why would you give up all that power? And as you grow up and go through life, it's like, you know what? The farm sounds nice nowadays. I was like, I'm ready to go to the farm too.
Please take my responsibilities away. Let me just go back to let me go farm tobacco.
I'm fine raising animals and growing fruit and vegetables.
Yep.
And calling it a day, being self-sufficient and not having to worry about the complexities of political life. Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Words to live by, for sure.
Right. It's the simple things.
That's right.
Right.
And we here at Cleophily remind you, our listener, to think about the simple things today. And go ahead and, if you haven't already commented, why don't you tell us in the comment section what simple things you enjoyed today. Thank you very much for listening.
Well said, Solomon.
Thank you. They call me the Virgil of the Midwest.
Oh, I'm sure.
I'm Solomon. And this is my friend Jacob. Thank you for spending time with us today.
Thanks for having me.
And we hope to see you again soon. So take care, listeners, and we will, until next time, keep learning.